Yeah, same goes with credit cards, right? In this business, one of the perks is you're going to get a lot of rewards if you use the right credit cards. But more importantly, you want to house everything into a certain card or multiple cards so that you're not overlapping. Again, in the beginning, I didn't have two fucking pennies to rub together. If I'm honest with you, John, I grew up relatively lower middle class, and I was in $40,000 in consumer debt when I started this thing, and I put the course on a credit card, and I did everything I could do. And when orders came in, and I either had to wait for the cash from Shopify to come over to process an order, or I had to, use one of the credit cards where I was robbing Peter to pay Paul, or, got a 0% offer. Hell yeah, let's move the debt over to this one and use this card. And if that's what you got to do, that's what you got to do. And again, it made accounting a nightmare, but I would tell you out of the gates, if you can, you should go get the MX Gold card, and you should get the Capital One Spark card. Hey, welcome to the Dropship podcast. Today, we are going to give you the ultimate dropshipping checklist, and we're going to walk through it one by one. If you want to grab a copy yourself, head to dropshipbreakthru.com/checklist. You can check out the entire checklist and probably some more goodies from John. But talk about why we're going to do this, John. Why are we giving them the ultimate checklist?
Yeah, so this is the ultimate checklist for beginners, particularly. And so, people listening to this podcast probably interested or thinking about starting a high-ticket dropshipping business. And, like when you're new and you're doing something for the first time, it can feel pretty overwhelming, right? There's a lot of tasks and a lot of little things that you'll hear about doing if you've listened to this podcast. Certainly some of our earlier episodes, we've kind of walked through in individual episodes each of the steps in getting a high-ticket dropshipping business started and launched and making sales. And if you've listened to that, you'll be like, well, there's all sorts of different things. And like, when do I do them? What order do I do them in? Like where do I go to get that information? And so a checklist really, checklists are fantastic. I love checklists. I'm a huge fan. They're, a big part of, a business and a team and all of that sort of thing. And, if you've got employees who use checklists a lot, because they just really simplify understanding what you need to do, when you need to do it, what order you need to do it in. And they also provide you with an opportunity to double check your progress really quickly and easily, like on a page. As you're going through, you can say, oh, did I do that thing? I had it in the back of my mind. Did I actually do it? A checklist gives you a really simple way to kind of just check that off. Say, yep, I've done it, so that if you ever have doubts in your mind that have I done everything I need to do, you can go back and you can have a look at that and say, yeah, I checked that box, that's done. I don't need to worry about it anymore. And I think the action of using a checklist is really helpful from a mindset perspective, if you like, or just a mental space perspective, because there's something about like actually marking a task off. Like you think about it, if you've got a to-do list every day, you've got like 3 or 4 things on a to-do list and you mark one off, like it feels good, right? It feels good. You get a sense of achievement, you get a sense of momentum, you get a sense of progress. But it also allows you to then put that task out of your mind because you've done it. You don't even have to have it sitting there in the back of your mind. And once again, when you're in a scenario where you're doing something, you're doing it for the first time, everything's new, that can be a really helpful mental thing to go through to be able to tick things off your list and not have to worry about them anymore, so that you can retain focus on the things that you actually should be doing to make more progress and gather more momentum, which I think are very, very important and a very important sense that you need to have in order to maintain consistency when you're new to something. Is you need to feel like you're moving forward, even if it's small steps or whatever. When you feel like you're not moving or you don't have a sense of the movement that you're making, it's really easy to get discouraged and kind of fall off with what you're trying to do. So
one of my favorite things about checklists that you taught me, John, is the airplane thing, right? So before checklists were mandatory on airlines, there was a crash, like one every million miles flown. And then they said, how about we have a checklist so that you have to go through this checklist no matter what before every flight. And there was a 4 to 5x decrease in crashes, in accidents on airplanes because of a checklist, right? It just helps you not let anything fall through the cracks, right? If you can just walk through this step, and we've built this specifically for high ticket dropshipping, because you and I have been doing this for 10 years each, over 10 years at this point, right? Like this is pretty dialed in of like all the steps that you need, and you really don't want to miss one of those either.
Yeah, absolutely. We're gonna take you through the checklist, and but the process we're going to take you here and the checklist, like it works. We've done it many times personally ourselves, and we've had many students who have followed exactly what's in this checklist, the ultimate checklist as we're calling it, who have followed the steps in the order that they're in, and successfully launched like a business that's profitable off the back of that. So, just and I think as well, just without like the right order as well. I think that's where this really helps. We see a lot of people who, they try and start a high ticket dropshipping business by themselves, and they kind of jump around a lot. They do some things at the wrong time, like they go and try and open a Google Merchant Center account before they've even set up a website, and then it gets suspended before they've done anything. It's like, you shouldn't have done that then. Yes, you do need to do that, but you need to do that at the right time. Or maybe they go and try and call suppliers before they've built their website. Both things that you need to do, but there's a particular order and way that you need to do those things to get the maximum, leverage from doing them towards a business that's up and running and actually works. And so I think, to me, that's definitely, it's not just about the what do you need to do when you're a beginner. It's actually like, when do you need to do it? I think that's probably something that people will overlook a little bit here in terms of the importance of or the help that this is going to provide for you.
I can stop you from, like you said, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, or in the age of Google suspensions, making sure that you have the right pieces in the right places so that when it comes time to present yourself to Google, you can just breeze right through. Hopefully.
That's it. Well, let's get at it, man. Let's dive into this checklist. Like Ben said, if you want to get your own copy and some other goodies some other checklists and goodies that I'm going to throw in there from our course, Dropship Breakthru, just go to dropshipbreakthru.com/checklist, and you can grab them for yourself, which I recommend, so that you've got them forever and they're right in front of you, and you don't have to listen to this podcast 50,000 times every time you want to see where you're at on the checklist. But let's get into it. Let's run through it. And this checklist is the ultimate checklist for beginners. So this checklist covers everything from being at square one, like you haven't done anything yet, you've never run a business before, you're doing this for the first time, through to the point where your business is live, right? So through that, the entire process of starting your business, getting it set up, and getting it to the point where you can make a sale, make your first sale. And that really is, when you're getting started, this is your golden number one goal, is to make one sale. That's your first goal. You just have to make one sale, and then you can focus on making 2 sales, and then you can focus on making 10 sales, and so on and such forth. But we're going up until that point with this checklist.
Well, first and foremost, a lot of people think you need to register a business a certain way, right? And I would tell you, I'm only going to speak to America. Maybe John can touch on Australia. I don't know if you are familiar with the UK stuff as well. I think you are a dual citizen, if I remember right, John. But in the US, most people think you need an LLC. And I'm going to be honest and say you don't actually need one. You can start as just yourself, but in the end, you're probably going to want an LLC. If you plan to turn this into a real business, you should start one. Now, in most states, you can do this pretty simply. You don't need any of the many businesses out there that will show up as sponsored ads the moment you type in, how do I get an LLC? You should be able to do this with your state quite easily. Now, you're going to want to make sure you do it right? Register a name, and it doesn't matter what your business name is. You can call it whatever you want, because you can do business as your URL when we eventually get there. But name it whatever you want. Just do the steps that are necessary, which is start your LLC. You're going to need an article of organization saying that you're the owner of it, and you might need an operating agreement depending on your location. And so just do what your state asks you. It can be a little bit confusing, but it's it's a step that is necessary in the beginning. If you want to run a real business, you're going to have to move forward with this. You're going to need an LLC at some point. And it doesn't matter if your first idea isn't your last idea, isn't the one that takes off for you. You can still use this LLC to continue pivoting if that is indeed what you need to do down the line. So I would get an LLC if it was me, but again, not absolutely necessary. In fact, I didn't have one for my first business.
Yep. Yeah. Look, if you're in Australia, I recommend people start in Australia as a sole trader. Rather than starting with a company. Our setup is different here to the US. Starting a company in Australia does cost a little bit of money. And so it's kind of an unnecessary expense in the beginning. Like it's going to cost you probably between, you probably need some help to do it. If you use an accountant, it's going to cost you anywhere from like $500 to kind of like $1,500 to do that. And because it's very simple to transfer at some point from running your business as a sole trader to running your business as a company, like you can just do that at any time. I recommend people don't do that until further down the track when they actually need to do it, just because of that extra cost that you incur in Australia. So you want to start as a sole trader, register for an Australian business number is the process there with ASIC. And if you're in the UK, we do recommend going straight to forming a limited company or an LTD company. And so that's the way you would do it there. Once again, if you're in another country, like maybe a European country or another country that Ben and I aren't 100% familiar with or haven't done it in, like just explore the options. There's going to be one or two options that are right for you. Look at the tax implications of doing either of those things, but like keep it as simple as possible in the beginning. You just need the minimum in place that will allow you to trade as a business, because almost always you can change that down the track to a more complicated or a more a larger kind of option.
And if I wasn't clear, it is going to cost you money to get an LLC. But you don't need to pay the exorbitant fees. Again, go to Google and search, how do I get an LLC? They're going to charge you hundreds of dollars, where in my state, and I can only speak to my state, in Wisconsin, it's $130 to file online. They say it'll take 48 hours. It's done in 10 minutes. Like you can have it done. So, right. But you need to either be you or be an LLC so that you can move on to this next step in the US, which is get an EIN. So you all have a social security number. Your business needs one too, essentially, and that's what an EIN is. It's very simple to register. I put the link in the checklist document here, irs.gov/business/small business self-employed, get an employer identification number. Again, go search Google for EIN and click the government link, not the 400 other links, to get you a free EIN that they'll charge you for. So very, very simple, but absolutely necessary to grab an EIN. And then the next thing you're going to want to do is actually register with your state. So if you set up an LLC with your state, you're going to want to register for a seller's permit or sales and use tax permit. They have multiple different names in many states. In fact, there are a couple states that just don't have one because they don't have state sales tax. But you're going to want to register for it if indeed your state has this. I believe there's only 5 states that don't. So double check. You likely have one. You're going to want to get registered in your state, meaning that you don't pay taxes on your goods. When you purchase them from the manufacturer, you don't have to charge customers tax until you reach thresholds in every other state except your own state. The moment someone orders from you in your state, you're going to need to charge taxes. I know that sounds confusing. It's actually much, much simpler than you think. We do have a whole section inside of our course on tax stuff to make it a little bit simpler for you. By all means, it's not easy. There's things to solve there, but in the beginning, for beginners, you just need to get the seller's permit so that you have the account number that is necessary. When you sign up with some suppliers, they're going to ask for it. You're going to want to make sure you have it. So again, should be pretty simple with your state, pretty simple online form with your, for me, it's, wi.gov. It's going to be inside of there, inside of some sort of a government platform for you, depending on your state.
Nice.
Do you have to do any of that stuff abroad?
Yeah. So I have a separate little thing in here, in Australia and the UK, for example, we have the GST, which is goods and sales tax, which is so our sales tax is nationally based in those countries. It's not state based like it is in the US, and so it's it's a flat sort of rate for across the whole country, and so it's not in Australia and UK. It's not mandatory to register for it straight away. So you legally don't have to register for it until you make a certain number of sales within one financial year. So in Australia, it's $75,000 in turnover in a single financial year. Then you must register for it. In the UK, I believe it's £90,000 off the top of my head. And so you don't have to, but you can. And so for me, usually I would just do it at this point because, when customers buy something from you, they're accustomed to seeing you saying like, oh, our prices include tax, right? Because everything they buy, except for certain products which are not taxable, like food, for example, they're used to seeing that broken out for them. And it can look a little bit weird if you don't. Like if you have pricing and you don't talk about it. Because, I mean, if you're not registered for it, you can't charge it. Right, obviously, and so personally, I don't see why you wouldn't. Like I kind of get why that rule exists, but at the same time, I usually just like getting it out of the way and doing it from the start. But I will say in those two countries, technically, you don't have to. If you wanted to wait until you got your business up and running and you made some sales and then you registered for it and started collecting it, then you can do that. Like, that's totally fine.
Well, more stuff on the US here that you're going to want to set up, and probably everywhere as well. You're going to want to open up a separate account just for this business. So early on, I mixed all my accounts together, and that made accounting an absolute nightmare. And so start yourself off on the right foot by opening up a business bank account. If you have the LLC, you should be able to walk into any bank and say, I'd like to open up a business account. Now, banks are all different. Credit unions are all different. I use my local credit union. They charge random fees on everything and wire transfer fees galore. If you go to the big banks, they got minimums. They've got fees to have a checking account. Through this process, John and I have both landed on Mercury as being like the platform we tend to use. Now, again, that's through Choice Bank and Trust, I think, is the bank behind them. Mercury is like a SaaS platform in front of it. I really like them, if I'm honest with you. We have a special affiliate link with them, dropshipbreakthru.com/Mercury, if you want to check them out. I really, really like them. They make paying wires like super easy. Paying John every month is super easy on my end. Paying suppliers, paying your bills in general, keeping track of everything. And I really like Mercury. But you don't need to use them. You can use any bank you want to. Just have a separate account that your business works through, and nothing else goes in there except for business expenses and profit.
Yep, definitely. I think Mercury is a great option, and like you say, you can use it in different places. But I think the main thing definitely is like have a separate bank account. Really, don't fall into the trap of using your personal account for your business as well. I think that just leads to so many problems, and it can be a pain in the neck to unpick those problems. And it's just like opening a business bank account. It's so easy. Just do it.
Yeah, same goes with credit cards, right? In this business, one of the perks is you're going to get a lot of rewards if you use the right credit cards. But more importantly, you want to house everything into a certain card or multiple cards so that you're not overlapping. Again, in the beginning, I didn't have two fucking pennies to rub together. If I'm honest with you, John, I grew up relatively lower middle class, and I was in $40,000 in consumer debt when I started this thing, and I put the course on a credit card, and I did everything I could do. And when orders came in, and I either had to wait for the cash from Shopify to come over to process an order, or I had to, use one of the credit cards where I was robbing Peter to pay Paul, or, got a 0% offer. Hell yeah, let's move the debt over to this one and use this card. And, if that's what you got to do, that's what you got to do. And again, it made accounting a nightmare, but I would tell you out of the gates, if you can, you should go get the MX Gold card, and you should get the Capital One Spark card. Those are easily my two favorite cards. We have a whole section in the course on this. We've done podcasts on this. Dropshipbreakthru.com/Amex, dropshipbreakthru.com/Capital One if you want to get a extra bonus if you sign up for those. I put all of my ad spend on the Gold card, on the MX card, and I put everything else on the Capital One. And the reason that I do that is for your first $150,000 in ad spend, Amex will give you 4x points on there. You'll be sitting first class with your family, not paying for flights soon enough if you can build this out. And Capital One will give you 2% back on everything. So you can imagine getting an extra 2% back on everything that you spend, including your cost of goods every time you're buying from your suppliers, can dramatically affect your bottom line on a bad month, right? And supplements you on good months. And it is a rebate. It is considered tax-free from Capital One. Talk to your own accountant on that, but it is a wonderful benefit. So those are the two I recommend. Is there two you recommend in Australia, or is your advice just say, stick to something that is separate?
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. You got to stick to something that's separate as like your baseline. In Australia and some other countries, unfortunately, we don't get the same sort of level of rewards and cashback as you do in the US. I think US has the best, sort of system around this that I'm aware of globally. But you can you can get points. There's still a lot of benefit to be had there, and so I think the Amex cards are the best for that on balance. But there are a lot of different options out there, and they all have different offers at different times, right? Like slightly different. Oftentimes they'll have a one card that's okay. We'll have a special promotion running where if you sign up, they're giving you X amount of points in your account straight away, and there can be some additional benefits. I think one of the things I definitely recommend people to look at in Australia is make sure whatever card you sign up for allows you to get points for government spending. What's government spending, you ask? Well, when you pay your taxes, you can pay your taxes with a credit card, right, and get points on paying your taxes, including like your goods and service tax remittances to the government, which is part of sales tax and all of that sort of thing. So you definitely want that, right? If you've got to give money to the government, you might as well get something directly back from doing that, right? Not all credit cards give you points for paying the tax office in Australia, and most people don't think about that. So you read the fine print. Some will say, the ones that do it, they'll say usually you get X amount of points for every dollar spent with the government or something like that, because it is a perk for businesses. But make sure you read the fine print and just double check if you're looking at one and you're unsure, because to me, particularly when your business gets a bit bigger, that's a good benefit to have. And it makes the pain of paying your taxes a tiny bit better.
All right, next on the list is a pretty simple one, right? You're going to want to have a PayPal account for your customers to use when they check out. Now, I personally don't really like PayPal. I think other people do like PayPal. However, people use it, and they use it a lot, especially in the US. And so you're going to want a business PayPal account. I would just tell you one little thing. When you sign up, the first thing you should do is immediately email their support and say, turn on auto sweep, like immediately. And what that is the moment the money comes into your account, it auto sweeps back out of your account. If you don't do that, it'll stay in your account. And before long, PayPal will say, geez, I don't know if we can trust you with these packages. We're going to hold on to your money for 60 days and then we'll get back to you. And you definitely don't want to go through that hassle. So have them turn on auto sweep right away. It is it used to be, you could do it manually. Now you have to ask them to do that, but they will happily do that. So sign up for a business PayPal account, get it ready to go, get all of your information in there from your LLC, from your bank account, all the stuff that needs to be in there. And just know that the integration into Shopify is super easy. You don't need to do anything else other than get your information in there, turn on auto sweep. And when you get further down this checklist, you'll be able to put it to use.
Yep, absolutely. Look, the last thing here, we've just kind of gone through the business formation stage, and that's literally all the things that you need to do to form your business, right? There's one last thing that I throw in here, which we put it at this point in our course, Dropship Breakthru, and it's very important. It's not like actually a business formation step, but it's kind of like a mindset and a mental preparation step for yourself. And this stuff is like wildly important in terms of building a successful business. And so we get our students to go through a process where they, create a vision for what they want their business to look like and what, and what they want their life to look like as a result of becoming an entrepreneur and going down the entrepreneurial pathway. And so I'd recommend people, like if you're listening to this and you haven't already, we've talked about it before, but if you haven't already, go and read the book called Vivid Vision. It's by a guy called Cameron Herold. We'll put the link in here as well. The link's going to be in the checklist of where you can get that. It's a really short book. It's very small, super easy to read, and it will take you through an exercise of doing this. And the vision is like, it's really going through not just like kind of why you're doing what you're doing, but like helping you to visualize what success looks like for you. And the answer is different for everybody. There's no right or wrong answer, really. But it's giving you something that's concrete, that you write down, that you can refer back to as you go through regularly, as you go through the process of building and ideally launching and then growing your business. It's something that in some way or another, and there's different versions of this out there for sure, but like I don't know many people in business that don't do this or a practice like this, or at least have a firm view in their mind and picture of where they're trying to go to. So I think it's and Ben, you've done this for a while. I've certainly, I don't know, when I first read that book, it's probably 5 or 6 years ago, I'd say now. Something that I do, we do it for our businesses. Once a year now, we for us and for our partner businesses, we get down and talk about like what's our business gonna, what do we want it to look like in 10 years or 5 years or 3 years. And so it's a really, really important exercise to go through, and I think it'll be pretty eye-opening if you actually do it.
Yeah, honestly, I probably need to do it again. Like I did it a lot in the beginning, and it's not something I've done recently, and I probably should, if I'm honest with you. It is that powerful to just sit there and reflect. Where do I want to be in 3 years? Go sit in that. I don't know, you call it law of attraction, whatever you want. Like actually go sit in that moment. What does that feel like? Who's around you? What words are being used? What does my life look like? What does my house look like? What does my relationships? What do they look like? And it's a really short book, to be honest with you. It's like 100 pages, but it is powerful, and I can't recommend it enough. It's something we gave away at our first event, I believe, maybe our second event, and it's something that we recommend to every single student that we have.
Absolutely. All right. So once you've got your business formation done, the next big step and kind of coming to the first big decision, if you like, about your business, what your business is going to be about specifically, is niche selection, right? So you're going to go through a series of steps here to work out who you're going to sell to and what you're going to sell to them, right? So your ideal customers, and then your what are the product types you're going to sell? What are some of the brands that you might be looking at? What are the individual products themselves going to be? And so this is the big one that everybody thinks about, and the first big question that a lot of beginners want to have answered, and it's the second step here. So right out the gate, rather than trying to think of just trying to think of one thing all the time, which can be really difficult, we recommend you, as your first step, brainstorm at least 20 niche ideas. And so if you want to get more detail on that, I'd go back to some of our early episodes. I think episode 12, episode 13, somewhere around there, where we go through, this step and these steps in a lot more detail. But you want to come up with at least 20 niche ideas. These days, you can definitely use AI to help you with that. You're trying to think of enthusiast or passion-based niche ideas. So what are things that people do that they do because they want to do it rather than need to do it, and or businesses that you could serve, or business categories that you could serve. That's kind of what you're looking for here, but you can use ChatGPT to help you come up with niche ideas. And I think it's good to just kind of, at this point, just write stuff down, write it down quickly, don't think about it, because the process of doing that will just throw up a whole bunch of ideas for you. Some of them are going to be shit, some of them are going to be good, some of them are going to be meh. But if you try and think of what's just one idea, it's actually really difficult to come up with just one idea, right? Confidently. So I like to just throw a lot of ideas out there, and then over the next steps, whittle those ideas down to what is actually the good ideas, and obviously chuck out the not so good ideas. So once you've done that, once you've come up with your 20 ideas at least, so you could do more if you wanted to, and trust me, if you use use an AI platform to help you, or Google search even. You can just go on Google and search like give me a list of hobbies that people have in my country. Give me a list of, businesses that people run in my country, and you'll get a ton of ideas. You might well have more than 20. But then you just want to go through them real quick, look at them and say, well, what products, might people buy to do these things, and then just using Google. Google is your friend here, but also you can use AI for this, for most of these steps, to be honest, to a certain extent. Identify which of those ideas have products that are $1,000 or more on average, right? I mean, we're talking about high ticket dropshipping here, and the definition of high ticket dropshipping is that you're generally selling products that are $1,000 or more. Certainly like the sort of $2,000 to $3,000 range is a nice range as well, $5,000. There is no maximum cap on this. We've sold products that are $100,000. So there's no cap. But you want to, this is your first test. Does the niche have products that are over $1,000 in it? If the answer is no, then you just cross it off the list, instantly. Don't even think about it anymore. It doesn't matter. It's not relevant for what we're talking about here.
I'm just putting a little note in here that what you just said there, because that's so important. The 2K to 5K, it's like chef's kiss zone. If you can find the 2K to 5K zone, there's so much room there for you to make mistakes, for you to spend a little more on ads than you probably should to figure it all out. There's just more room for error there the higher you get up there. And you might be sitting there saying, I don't know anyone who buys $3,000 products or $5,000 products, but trust me, they are sold every day, all the time. It might take you a little bit of thinking for you to get there, to think about what those products are. But if you could start identifying some products and categories that fall into that, I think you'd be pleasantly surprised at how well you could do in that space. Yeah.
So, one of our businesses is, at the moment it's doing sort of over $500,000 a month in sales. So that's hundreds of orders a month, every month. And the average order value there is over $2,000. So that means on average, people are spending $2,000 or more, and hundreds a month. So thousands a year sort of thing. And so there's definitely, and we're by no means necessarily the biggest business in that space yet. So there's people that are doing even more of those sales. And so, people who get a bit concerned that, do people really spend that much money? Let me tell you, they absolutely do. So you just have to have a bit of trust in that. So, once you've knocked out all the ones that don't have products over $1,000, we're going to do. There's some more research steps on this checklist. But if you cut down your 20 ideas to say 10. You don't want to do all the research to those. I like to kind of just start with a few ideas and do a bit more deeper research. So I like to identify the top 3 that appeal to you personally. And the reason I put this in there is because, if you've got some ideas on your list that, they have to meet that minimum pricing threshold for high ticket dropshipping. If it's something that you don't have to do it yourself, but you're at least interested in it a little bit. You like the idea. You can see running a business in that space a little bit. Start with those, right? Because those are going to be a little bit of easier businesses for you to run. Whereas if you've got an idea on there and it's it's got some high ticket products, but I just don't get it. It sounds really dumb. I don't like the people that I think buy those products. Maybe, don't do that. Right, it's not going to be a very fun business for you to run. If you had absolutely no other options, you could do it. But find a couple that appeal to you, and circle those, and then go into the upcoming steps and the deeper research on those first. Because if one of those ticks all the boxes for you, hey, go do that. That's going to be fantastic, right? And then so look at those ideas, and the first thing you want to ask yourself is are these enthusiast / passion / interest, or whatever you want to call it, or B2B niches? Those are really what we're aiming for here. So what I'm trying to sort of say is make sure that those are not kind of necessity niches. So, there's a lot of products that work for high ticket dropshipping and a lot of categories of products and a lot of niches, but there's some that don't work. And one of the big ones of those is things that everybody has because they kind of need to have them. So like if you think about like white goods or consumer electronics, like refrigerators, washing machines, televisions, these things don't work well, right? For a number of reasons, but they just don't work well. But similarly, like furniture doesn't work well. Everybody has furniture, right? And so we're trying to avoid those ideas and focus in only on ideas where the person is buying the thing because they want to attain the outcome that thing provides. And so, one of Ben's great successes was in the golfing space. People don't need to play golf, right? Like to exist and whatnot. People don't need to play golf. People play golf because they like to, they want to, they love it. They get very passionate about it. And they get very passionate about improving their game. And so there's a range of products that you can sell somebody to help them achieve that outcome of playing golf and getting the enjoyment and improving their game and being better than their buddies and all of that sort of stuff. And that's the sort of niche that you're looking for. Or a B2B niche, which to me is kind of the same. Business owners are passionate about their businesses generally, and getting a great outcome with their business or getting a great outcome for their customers from their business, and they need products to do that. And so we see a lot of success at the moment with B2B niches, and so if you've got those on your list, that meet that $1,000 threshold, they're definitely a place to hone in on there.
Again, sweet spot is, can you hit right down the middle where there's these enthusiasts who will pay whatever because they love it, and there's also a ton of businesses that need this stuff to serve customers on their own. If you can hit a field goal or whatever, how you want to split it right down the middle there. That's the sweet. Find 2 to 5K products right down the middle of that zone, and you're going to be doing very, very well, I think.
Yeah. Right on. So once you've answered that question, so you've got those 2 or 3 ideas that you really like, and you say, yep, they are one of those, or they're a bit of both, then you just want to start making a list of some of the product categories that you see. So once again, you can use AI for this, so you could go to AI and say, if I'm somebody who's passionate about playing golf, what are some of the products that I would buy? Or what are some of the product types that I would buy to do that? And it's going to spit you out a whole list of stuff. Some of them are going to be good. Some of them might be not so good, but just make a list of, at least maybe 5 that exist. We don't want to start single product category stores if we can help it. You can, and they can work, but you leave a lot on the table when you go down that approach, right? So most niches, there's going to be a number of product categories that people buy, and if there are, you should sell them all, right? Because that enables you to sell multiple products to the same person. It enables you to get repeat business from the same person over time, higher average order values potentially, and so these are very important things in terms of growing a business. So write down your product categories, and then once again, Google is your friend here. The next step for you to check off is to go and look at how many brands, or there's interchangeable terms here, brands, suppliers, distributors, whatever it might be, can you find in those product categories? And you want to be able to find multiple, right? That's what we're aiming for here. So you look at product category 1, you go into Google and just search, put in that keyword of what that product category is, or that type of product, and see what comes up in the Google search results. Go to some of the websites that sell those products and look at what brands are they selling. Can I see multiple different brands of these products? Once again, you can use AI to help you with this. You could ask ChatGPT, I live in this country. Can you tell me what the top brands of this product type are, right? Or that people buy. And it's going to give you some names, right? It's probably not going to pick up all of them, but it's going to give you a pretty quick head start to say, oh, yeah, there's 10 brands for this product type, or maybe there's only 1. If it can't get you an answer, it probably means there's not many, and that might be a red flag for you, right? But you just want to check the box and say, yep, I can see a good amount of brands for each of the product categories that I'm thinking about selling, and that they're going to be your future supplies that you target as we make our way down this checklist. once again, if you can't find brands for products that you're thinking of, then either the products might be really new, or they're just super, super niche or something like that. And once again, not to say that people don't buy those products, but probably not the best option to take for high ticket dropshipping. So similarly, and you can kind of do the next step is like research how many competitors you can see for the product categories you're thinking of selling. Like how many other e-commerce retailers are selling the same products that you want to sell? And once again, you want to see some, right? And you can use Google Shopping ads for this. Is definitely the easiest place to look. So once again, you just go to Google, type in your product type keyword, whatever the name of the product type is, and you'll see ads come up, right? Google Shopping ads along the top of the screen. There's the shopping tab that you can click into as well to give you even more shopping results. And just have a look through and see who the advertisers are. The advertisers are your future competitors, right? You can see their names in the ads. And so you just want to count up, make a quick count and say, all right, well, for this product category, I see 5 mainly that show up in the ads. For this one, I see 10. For this one, I see 7. And then kind of work out a bit of an average across each of your product categories, right? Now, I'm going to throw out numbers here. These numbers aren't necessarily hard and fast, but I know when you're doing something for the first time, it's hard to pick up all the nuance in a niche if you're not used to doing this. I like to aim for less than 15 on average in the US. That's kind of my number there. Well, once again, that can vary a little bit, but that's a good number to aim for. If you're somewhere in a smaller country, you would lower that number a little bit, maybe closer to 10. But once again, like don't nitpick over that number. Like if it's 16, it doesn't mean it's a bad idea. I get emails from people that are like, "You said 15. I've got this great idea, and it's like 17." And I'll be like, yeah. I mean, that's still fine. But like if you're seeing shopping ads where it's like there are 25 sellers selling this product or something, that you don't want to go there. That's like a level that's really going to be getting difficult for you. And so
you don't want too little either, right? If you go there and there's no shopping ads, you go there and maybe there's one, or it's just the brand. That's usually a good sign of I don't want to be here.
Absolutely. You want some competition because that indicates that there is a large enough market in existence already for people to buy those products online that can support multiple resellers or multiple sellers. If you don't see any shopping ads, that's definitely a red flag because it means that generally either the product's just, once again, it might be a very new product which has in and of itself, we don't recommend you sell very new products for a whole bunch of reasons, or trendy products if you like, new trendy products, or it just means that for whatever reason, maybe there's not enough brands, but people just aren't buying those things online yet. Trust me, at this point in time, with the maturity of e-commerce markets in the countries that we mainly do this, if people are buying a product, there's going to be shopping ads for it. Right, so that's a very quick little box for you to tick as to whether something's viable or not. But it can be a little bit counterintuitive because somebody will probably think of the argument in their head, well, if nobody's advertising for it yet, then surely that's a massive opportunity. And like I could go in there and be the only person running ads, and then I've got a captive market, right? And like if we were 15 or 20 years ago when online advertising was new, I would probably agree with you and say, yeah, look, I think you're right. But like there's no secrets at this point in time in terms of what products sell and what products don't. If people are buying products, somebody already knows it. And that somebody is already advertising. And so if they're not, you haven't stumbled across a hidden gold mine. You're just stumbled across an empty gold mine, right? Like or a gold mine that hasn't filled up yet. Maybe as well. So just avoid that. So you see how many competitors you can see. Your next item checklist, let's say, and if any of these items in here you don't, it's like a red flag, just cross that niche idea off your list, right? And stop focusing on it. Don't do any more work there. You need to satisfy each of these things. You want to have a quick look at how much search traffic exists for your ideas. So you can use a tool like Keywords Everywhere, or something like that. Just get in there. You put some of your main product category type keywords in there. So the name of the product categories that you want to sell. See how many people search for that per month in your country. Right? You want to don't make the mistake of looking at global traffic numbers. You're not selling internationally or anything like that. You just want to look at what's been searched in your country. And once again, numbers there, they don't have to be as high as you think. Is my experience, but in the US, if you're in the multiple tens of thousands of searches a month on some quick keyword research, you're probably safe, because there's going to be so many other search terms that have volume that you can't even think of right now. That if just those basic ones are good, like a multiple tens of thousands and anywhere up from there. Like if you're in the hundreds of thousands, you're definitely sweet. And once again, if you're in a smaller country, you can expect those numbers to be lower, and that's okay. You're also going to have less competition and less people competing for those search terms, so the numbers can be lower as well. But what you don't want to see is you go in for your main product categories that you want to sell in there is like 5,000 searches a month or 2,000 searches a month or something along those lines. That, once again, like with the shopping ads, if there's no shopping ads and there's no search volume, then that's giving you a pretty clear message about those product categories. They're not going to be viable for you. Next box, assuming you're still in the green here. Next step that you want to check off your checklist is you want to ask yourself, can I see the possibilities for repeat business in each? Now, this is a fairly subjective question, but this is just asking yourself, like, can I see the same person buying, like the same customer buying from me more than once ever, right? Like, so if the answer to that is yes, great. If you're like, well, I'm selling a product, it's going to have like it's going to last for the rest of that person's life, and I'm not planning to sell any other products, they're probably not going to buy from you again. It's probably fairly low, right? Whereas and this is why we say about having multiple product categories, you want to be able to say yes, either they can buy the same product from you again in the future or an upgraded version of that product, or they can buy a different product from you in the future. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you have the potential to drive repeat business, because repeat business is more profitable and it's easier to sell to the same person in the future than fresh customers. So we like to check that box, because if you don't, then you're just cutting off one of the three avenues to business growth. And there's no point starting a business with that cut off from the start. So
if you're looking for an example, think woodworking, right? If you're targeting the woodworking enthusiast, he might have a planer, he might need to buy a router, he might need to buy God knows what other tools. I'm not a woods guy, but there's tons and tons of tools for the woodworking person, right? And so if you're targeting enthusiasts, there's going to be lots of products they buy. This is your opportunity to get them in on the product they're looking for, and eventually they may come back for other products through email marketing or other types of remarketing that you do to them. And so same with B2B, right? The person who's buying a product from you for their business likely has other products in their business that you could offer complimentary on your site.
Yep. Next box to check is you want to ask yourself the question, are the products going to be ridiculous to ship? And so once again, this is a little bit subjective, and I'm not saying like work out the exact cost it's going to take to ship your products. That's not what we're saying here. There's no way for you to do that at this point. Just look at the product. How big is it? How heavy is it? How do you think it would ship? Use your judgment here a little bit, right? So I was speaking to a student in our course who had an idea about some products to sell. I'm going to say what it was, because I told him it probably wouldn't work out. He had a range of product ideas, and for a particular ideal customer, and one of those was, well, I could sell these, kind of like, polycarbonate or whatever they're made from, rainwater tanks, right? Like a 10,000 litre rainwater tank, which is like it's as small as far as water tanks go, but it's still like fairly big, and it's to the size where it's not shipping on a pallet. It's much bigger than a pallet, right? In fact, you would need a small truck just for one of them, basically. Now, if you're selling nationally in a country that's geographically the size of Australia or the US, that's going to be pretty expensive. And the price on some of them was like $1,000, right? And I looked at that and said, well, that's $1,000. That's going to cost, if you're shipping to a lot of the country, that's going to cost the minimum of $500, probably more. It's probably actually in some cases going to get closer to the $1,000, which is the cost of the product. It's going to be really hard for you to get somebody to pay $1,000 shipping for a $1,000 product, right? So, whereas if that same product was $20,000, would somebody pay $1,000 to ship it? Actually, yes, they probably would in some cases, or in enough cases that it's worthwhile if they really need that product. So, you want to ask yourself: is your product just really big? And if it's not even going to fit on a pallet. Which means for weight, it's like, I don't know what the max weight for a pallet is in the US. In Australia, it's like at least 120, 130 kilos, which that's a heavy product, right? If it's getting much more than that, then the price needs to be high. Like the retail price in the products needs to be high, like $5,000 plus. And if that's the case, then you're probably sweet, right? Because you can sell anything if the price is high enough. But if you've got a low price, like closer to the $1,000 mark, but the product is just really big, and really big, you probably want to avoid that.
And sometimes it's not even weight, right? I once sold barrel saunas that needed to arrive on a flatbed, and the customer needed to arrange to have a forklift ready to take it off the flatbed. I was just like, yeah, sure. Joe Bag of Donuts in Tennessee is definitely going to have a forklift ready to go. Like, it just seems unreasonable in some cases. And so, really think through in your head, what does this delivery look like? To your point, are these products going to be ridiculous to ship? I think is a great way to phrase that.
Yep. And then your final checkbox is to pick whichever niche looks the best based on your research. So all of the steps that we've just taken you through on this checklist that you've got to check off, you're going to come to the end of that generally with one idea that kind of stands out from the rest. Usually, there were the most suppliers, there were the least competitors, there was good amount of search traffic. You could see the repeat business. That's it. You're done. That's your choice, and you can move on to the next step. Tick that box. You found your niche. You know what products you're going to sell, or where you're going to start on products, and then you can get on to the next steps of building your business. And of course, if you're in Dropship Breakthru, little plug here, we verify all of our students' niches for them as well before they start. So we go and double check that they've got the niche selection bit right, so that they don't have to worry so much about did I make the right choice and second guessing themselves and all of that sort of thing. So if you'd love to get that sort of support, Dropship Breakthru /call, dropshipbreakthru.com/call, book a call in. We'll talk to you about joining the program and make sure it's a good fit for you, and then you can get that sort of support as you go. But once you've worked out what you're going to sell, who you're going to sell it to, aka your niche, you then move on to building your website. Now, some people might feel that's a bit funny. They might say, wow, why don't you just go and call suppliers and make sure that you can actually get suppliers, and kind of get the logic to that a little bit. But it's easier to, given you get generally one like an initial shot at a supplier, you want to put yourself in the best position possible to get them on board. It's much easier if you have kind of like a minimum viable product, if you like, website up and running with some branding and something that looks professional, so that a supplier can say, yeah, this person's serious about doing this. They're worth me actually talking to, because suppliers can get a lot of calls from people who have half an idea and haven't done anything and have made no commitment. And this kind of helps you stand out from the crowd a little bit to take this step and to do it first. You're going to do it anyway. So we do this first, and there's a bunch of little things in here that it's time to do at this point.
There's a dozen or so in here. I'm gonna try to go through these a little bit quicker. I know we're already pushing an hour on this, and we're not even halfway through our list. So I'll go a little bit faster, because they're relatively simple, but they're necessary. They're absolutely necessary, right? So pick a business name. It's the first thing you need to do. Think of a name. Now, I like to use tools like leandomainsearch.com to help with this. Don't pick some of the obvious things that come to your mind right away. There are way too many product category direct, product category stop. There's way too many product category warehouse. No offense to any of our students who are listening to this who have chose those. There are better names for you, right? So really think through what is a good business name. You're likely going to come up with some ideas that you just can't afford, right? Any one-word domain at this point is going to be tens of thousands of dollars, so throw that one out the window. But if you can really think of the person you're serving or the category you're serving and go chuck that into lean domain search, it'll give you a lot of ideas of domains that are available. It will also tell you whether the socials are available, which is kind of a big thing to make sure that you get all of the socials for your name. But really try to go broad here, not super broad. You don't want to paint with a really big paintbrush, but you also don't want to be... and I'll throw myself under the bus here. My first store was the 3D printer guy. Maybe not the best idea. I also owned Pellet Grill Pros. Like that was very isolated, right? And I see a lot of people who are like category director, category stopper, category warehouse, or category, something or other, just like simple words like that. And so you're going to want to try to expand yourself and pick something more general there. I like the tool Lean Domain Search. I don't know if you use something, John, to look up different domains for yourself.
No, that's a good one to use for sure.
Once you know your name, it's pretty simple for you to get some branding, right? So head over to Fiverr. I put all of the links in the checklist here if you're looking for any of the links that we have for any of these things. And they might have a special offer for you going through our links. Fiverr is where we go for this. Fiverr, dropshipbreakthru.com/Fiverr. Get some logo, get some branding done. Pretty simple, probably going to cost you $5, $10 maybe to get this stuff done. You're going to want to get a logo for the top of your website. You might want to get a home page banner image for your website. You're going to want to understand what your businesses should look like on the homepage, because this is where suppliers are going to go down the line here, looking forward a little bit. But get a logo, get branding done. Don't think too hard about this other than don't pick a really tall one. Pick a rectangular shaped logo. That would be the advice that I would give you on this, just so that your header on your website isn't enormous because you pick something stacked on top of each other. Get something longer than it is tall. The next thing you're going to want to do is get a business phone number. So this was way more important, I think, 10 years ago, maybe 15 years ago, before cell phones, to get an 800 number, to get something toll free. But it still looks more professional than you having just a standard phone number. And so on the simple basis of looking more professional and having a platform on which you can record the calls that come in, so you can learn to get better yourself. You can go back and try to remember something on a call that maybe you didn't write down in the middle of the call. You can record your team members so that you can see how well they're doing and coach them to do better on their calls. Have a platform that will record voicemails for you. There's a lot of tracking options that you can have too. So it's very important to get a business phone number here. We used to recommend Grasshopper, and I still think it's an okay platform. Right now I have switched to OpenPhone, and I'm liking that a whole lot. So I would recommend OpenPhone at this point. Dropshipbreakthru.com/OpenPhone, and set it up. Pick a phone number that speaks to you, ideally toll-free. If you can get 800, great. If you can get 888, great. At this point, there's 855-844. There's all sorts of toll-free numbers in the U.S. And get a professional-looking number if you can. The next thing you're going to want to do to look professional is also get an email, right? So no one's going to want to buy from pelletgrills@gmail.com, right, when they email into support, but they are going to want to see info@pelletgrillpros, support@pelletgrillpros, returns@pelletgrillpros. Now you can do all of this into one email box if you want to, and just use aliases by using something called Google Workspace. So a lot of what we do is going to be backed up by Google. There's a lot of other steps here coming up shortly, I think, that all involve Google. We use a lot of Google tools when we're running a business, and this is your very first one. This is the home of it all. You need a Google Workspace account so that you have info@yourstore.com or sales at whatever you want to start your business as. This is your home. This is where your Google Drive will exist. This is where all your files will exist. This is where your emails will exist. This is where your team will have their own emails inside of there. This is your entire platform for your business. on the back end. And I recommend setting this up right away so that you don't have some other system that you're transferring to. Someday you're going to want to sell this business more than likely. And so it's very nice to have everything housed in one space. You know where everything is. And when it comes time to hand over the keys to the new owner and you get to walk away into the sunset, hopefully very, very happy, it's very easy to hand them one password and say, here's the keys to the castle. It's all yours. So Google Workspace, it used to be called G Suite. I think it is called Workspace now. So you can Google that if you want to look it up. I'm going to let you hit the next one here, John, because I want to know how you talk about this.
Yeah, so the next one is you want to decide which physical address you will use for the business, right? Now, you might sit there and think, wow, but hey, this is an online business. What do I need a physical address for? Well, you do. And it's not so much a physical address that you're going to tell customers to come to and do all of that sort of thing. We're not using it for that purpose. But there are multiple platforms that we use here where you do have to input an address. And so specifically thinking about Google Ads, you need an address for your billing. Google Merchant Center, you have to provide a place of business, not once again that's advertised to customers as they should go there, but Google, part of their verification process is that they look at addresses. And they want to see that the most important thing here is they want to see consistent use of the same address. So there is a lot of debate about whether you should use what's known as a virtual address, which is, like it looks like a real address, but it's like a company will have an actual physical address and then they'll have 1,000 virtual addresses, which are like suite numbers within that address. The main address does actually exist. Like there is a building there, but there isn't really all of those businesses physically there. And so you can buy a virtual address in your state, let's say, which you can use as your business address. Now, there is a lot of argument about, particularly Google, do they not like those type of addresses, and are they able to always identify those as virtual addresses, or should you use another address which only your business will be at, aka your home address, in the beginning? Look, I think that the jury is still out on that, in that I've seen people do it both ways still in recent times and have success, and I've seen people doing it both ways get suspended by Google. And so I think it may be that there are certainly some virtual address centers that I think are very well known, particularly in states like Wyoming, which is where every international person that wants to register a US business goes and registers in Wyoming, and they're always sold a address at a location on, I think it's Sheridan Street, Wyoming, or it's North Sheridan Street, or something like that.
That's the city, Sheridan, yeah.
Yeah, Sheridan in Wyoming. And it's just there's like one or two addresses there. And so there's literally so many online sellers using the same addresses. I think Google maybe does track that and say, as if there's 3,000 e-commerce businesses in one building, right? That's fucking stupid. And so I think they may do that. I can see the logic to that. And I would say if you're going to get a virtual address, try and find a really small one that's not used very much in a small town somewhere, or a smaller town somewhere, that's, like hopefully in a less commonly used state than like Wyoming or Delaware, which are two of the really common ones for internationally registered businesses to show up, which are the type of businesses that tend to want virtual addresses, right? So you kind of want to avoid those. But personally, if I'm honest, I have absolutely no problem with using your home address. Like, that's what I do, right? And I don't care. I've been doing this for 11 years. I've used my home address for these purposes that whole time, and not once have I had something unwanted turn up at my address. A person or mail or anything, right? It doesn't happen. You're not putting it on your website and saying, hey, customers, come and see our products at this address, right? People don't do that. And like, once again, if you're like, well, I need privacy, blah, blah, blah. Like, what do you, like, I mean, we'll probably get into an existential debate about this. Like, what are you scared of? There is nothing to be scared of here, right? So I think that's, for most people, it's going to be the safest option. If you really don't want to do that, then sure, get a virtual address, but like I say, follow the rules that I just stated. But whatever you do, use the same address everywhere that you are asked to put in an address. Don't use an address that your credit card's registered to, and where your payment details are registered to matters, right? So wherever you're registering your credit card to, your bank account to, register your business, like say your business is at that location, because when you put your payment details into Google Ads, where you're going to pay for ads, and you use one address for your payment details, and if you use a different address in Google Merchant Center, you will 100% get suspended. Right? That I can say definitively does result in suspension. So the biggest thing here is consistency. And if you can, try and use an address that a whole bunch of other businesses aren't also registered at.
I've had luck in the past with a UPS store. If you want to pay for it, they're great.
Sure.
Again, you're going to want to put your LLC as located at the UPS store, suite number, whatever you are. You're going to want to put your bank account as that's your address, your credit cards. Everything needs to reside there, to John's point, so that you can't go to your Shopify or to Merchant Center or to Google Ads or to Google Workspace when you set it up and find some other address in there. You want to look like a business who has one address, right? The businesses don't have 14 addresses or even 2 different addresses. So make sure you get that right. The next thing you want to do is secure a domain name. And I was actually thinking about this with Google Workspace. You're going to want to tie those together, right? You have to put in some MX records in your domain name. So when you secure this domain name, which I would recommend Namecheap, that's what I'm a fan of. You can use GoDaddy, you can use whatever. Go get the domain name and immediately go connect it with your Google Workspace account. They're going to give you a tutorial on how to do so. It's super simple. It's just some copy and paste, some weird numbers and letters that maybe you've never seen before, but it's pretty simple to connect those two. And you're going to want to do that right out of the gate. So I like Namecheap, dropshipbreakthru.com/Namecheap. They're always running a code, so immediately Google Namecheap coupon code. They'll be the first result. They'll give you a little code for that. It'll cost you about $10. The next thing you want to do is open a Shopify account. Now, we have a partnership with Shopify as well, dropshipbreakthru.com/Shopify. I believe you can get started for $1 or whatever promo they're running currently. You're going to need Shopify to run your business. Shopify is the home of your business. It is the e-commerce platform that is hosting your entire business. There are other places that you could host your business. There are 0 other places that John and I would recommend you host your business. Shopify is the platform that we recommend. It's the only one we use. Do not try any of the others. If you've messed around with the others and you say you feel more comfortable over there, still go to Shopify. It is hands down the best platform that is out there currently. So open up your account. You're also, at that point, going to want to get a theme for that. So if you think of the younger kids might get this better, but skins on your guns in Fortnite or something to overlay on your website. So Shopify out of the gates comes with a free theme. I'm not even sure which one it is. It might be Dawn at this point. It looks okay. Everything looks okay. I definitely started my first business on a free theme, but there are many, many, many paid themes out there that are fantastic. We only recommend one, and it is the Superstore theme from Out of the Sandbox. We have a special deal with them as well, dropshipbreakthru.com/superstore if you want that, or better yet, if you do sign up for our course, we give you your own copy of this theme for free, and we have an entire module in our course dedicated to making this theme even better for Google, for SEO, for technical SEO. I guess that's how I would put it. Just make it faster, make it better, remove some bugs. It is the best theme out there, in my opinion. It is the best theme for high-ticket dropshipping. And so whether you go buy it yourself, whether you get it by joining our course, or you start with a free one and you move on to that down the line, I can't recommend them enough as far as getting there. As soon as you have your Shopify account set up, your Shopify theme chosen, you're going to put the theme inside of your Shopify account. You're also going to want to connect your domain to that Shopify account. So just like you took some MX records is what they're called from Google and copied and paste those and put them in your DNS records inside of Namecheap for your domain where you purchase that, or GoDaddy or wherever. You're going to do the same thing for Shopify. They'll tell you exactly what you need to put in there. Just copy and paste, put it in there, wait the allotted time, and wouldn't you know it, the URL that you purchase will now redirect to the Shopify store that you have. Pretty simple. Again, just follow the instructions as needed. Now, the next step has a lot of steps inside of it, which is set up your Shopify account settings. I think we could probably spend another hour talking through every single setting that you might want to adjust here. Is there some that you want to call out, John, that are like super necessary to make sure that you get right?
Yeah, look, I mean, there are a lot of little individual boxes in your Shopify account that you can put some information in. I think one of the big ones is, make sure that you've got the legal pages set up. You can just use the Shopify templates for those. Those are fine. Shopify will give you templates for those, but make sure your company name's in them, and the contact details are correct, like your email at the bottom, and all of that sort of stuff needs to be consistent with what your business actually is. Whenever you're working with templates, you always have to tweak them a little bit to put your business name in at a minimum, and maybe your address needs to go in some, and your email address for support and things like that. You've got to put that stuff in. Those are probably, so I'm talking about here a terms of service page or terms and conditions. I'm talking about your privacy policy, your shipping policy, and a returns policy at some point needs to go in there as well. So not only do they show up on your checkout page, which Shopify hosts for you, but you're also going to create those on your website as well as you design your website. I think those are the biggest ones. At this point, you don't need to set up your checkout yet, right? You don't want to have your checkout active before you've actually got live products on there. So you don't need to worry about the checkout settings just yet. We'll get to that down this checklist a bit further. And you also don't need to worry about, there's a section in there like customer events, where you put tracking tags from things like Google Ads and Facebook ads. You don't have to do any of that yet either. That's further down the piece because you haven't opened those accounts yet. But I think everything else is fairly straightforward. You're going to set up the shipping settings at the start. You just want to set up your shipping settings as free shipping. You just want one shipping rate, and it should be free shipping. At some point down the track, you may charge for shipping in some circumstances, but you don't need to worry about setting that up now because you don't have any products. You don't know when you do or don't need to do that, and so you just don't worry about it at this point. Set up free shipping, and that will carry you through until after you've got your business live at the very least, if not forever. There's little tax rates in there. Once again, in the beginning, where you charge tax, if you're in Australia or the UK, for example, you're going to charge sales tax. It's the flat rate for the whole country, so you just Shopify will work that out for you automatically, pretty much. If you're in the US, you may need to fiddle with the tax rates a little bit. You just want to set up a tax rate for the state that you're registered in first. Yes, down the track, will you need to charge sales tax in other states? Maybe, depending on where you get to and at what time that happens and all of that sort of thing. But right at the beginning, you don't need to. You just need the single tax rate set up for your sales tax rate set up for your state. That's it. Don't worry about every other state. Just have no sales tax in other states. I think that's about it for the most important settings. Like I say, there's a whole bunch of other little boxes that I think are pretty self-explanatory in that area, like what you might put in them. But those are kind of like the main ones.
Yeah, I think go to the lower left, click settings, and go through every one of those tabs. And I do think there's one other place. I'm actually checking on one of my stores. So if you click online store, there's also another one called preferences under there. Go into that as well. It's a very short section, but if you can do the settings and you can do the preferences, I think you're going to be in a good place.
Absolutely. So then you want to
the next three, John.
Then you want to design your website. Now, like designing your website, once again, there's a ton of little steps in here, and I want to say, if you want to see somebody actually go through this step by step, explain it all, build a complete website in front of you, then we do that in Dropship Breakthru in our program. So once again, head to dropshipbreakthru.com/call and jump on a call with a member of our team, and we'll have a chat to you about being part of our program, how we can help you, and no pressure whatsoever. You'll see if it's a good fit for you, and if it is, you can go ahead and do that. But you basically want to set up the front end of your website, like your home page. We're not building the whole website yet, though, right? Because you don't have any products yet. You don't know exactly what you're selling. You don't need to create 1,000 collection pages because you don't know what those are yet, right? But what we do want to have is something that looks pretty good. It's got a few products on it so that when suppliers look at it, which is going to be our next stage, is calling suppliers. When suppliers look at it, they can see, yes, this person has an idea of what they're doing. And I can see how my products are going to be positioned on that store. right? And have some confidence in your abilities. And so you want to design a website that has a homepage, like it's got like some nice imagery on it. You can get the images you can get AI to help you build images now. If you've played around with ChatGPT, you can get it to help you create banner images and things like that. Or you can just go to a stock photo sort of website. I use Adobe Stock personally, but there's a ton of these. Unsplash, there's all sorts out there. Get some imagery that's relevant to your niche. Once again, you're going to change those over time, because once you get approved with suppliers, you're going to get a lot of marketing materials from your suppliers that you can then use on your homepage, right? Before you go live to actual customers. But we just want to have something that looks pretty decent at this stage. So you set up your homepage. I usually, and when we build websites for people, and we do that as part of our Platinum membership, if you're interested in having your website built for you by our team, we can do that for you. I usually create 5 demo collections. So a collection is like each of your product categories. So you came up with this in your niche selection. You know what like some opening product categories are. I just set those up in the menu so the main menu looks nice. And then I create 5 demo products, I call them, which is I just go to another website. And usually the trick that I do is if I'm building one of these businesses in Australia, I will just go to put on a VPN, go to a website in the US, find a brand that I'm not going to set that isn't in Australia, and I'll just like cut and paste 5 of their products onto my website. Copy the images, put them into Shopify. Cut and paste the descriptions, put them into Shopify. Literally, you can have 5 products online in about 10 minutes, like literally. You're not going to sell them. Your checkout isn't live at this point. Nobody can buy these from you, actually. Nobody's going to see them because you're only going to be giving your website to suppliers, right? But what it enables them to do is to see what a product will look like on your website, roughly. And once again, you're going to make improvements over time, but it just lets you have something. So I just do like 5 of them in one of the collections one of the demo collections I set up. Then you've got a website that's on your domain that, if you call a supplier, you don't even necessarily tell suppliers like, go and look at my website. But when you call somebody and you say, hey, I'm calling from, this is my business name, Bob's Lawnmowers, or I'm calling from bobslawnmowers.com, some suppliers will just go and put that into their browser, and you want them to be able to see something when they land there. They want to see that you've got a phone number on there and you've got an email on there so that they know you're going to offer customer service, right? Because most high-ticket brands don't want people selling their products if they're not going to offer any customer service. They want you to be giving your customers a decent experience, because if you give them a really crap experience, that blows back on the brand, right? And they don't want that. That's not their role. The point of you is to be the person that faces the customers for them, right? And so all of these little things just make it easier when we come into the next stage, which is getting approved with suppliers. And this one is actually really simple, right? It feels daunting before you do it. You'll be very nervous about it, but the steps here and the checklist for getting approved with suppliers is really simple. The first step is to build a supplier list for your niche. So you might have done some of this back in niche selection, but for each of the product categories that you think you want to sell, just get onto Google, get onto some competitor websites, see what brands are out there, and write the names down in a spreadsheet, right? And if you grab our checklist, I'll be giving you a little template for what that spreadsheet could look like that you could use for this. You build a list, you just put down the names of each of the brands, right? And so find as many as you can. You're not going to find them all, the first time out, but you want to get a decent number, maybe 20. If you can find 20, that's a good number to start with, I think. Once you've got the list of names, then what you want to do is find their contact details. So once again, go and find their website. There's every brand has a website these days, right? And so on their website, they're usually going to have a phone number. If they don't have a phone number, they're going to have an email address. Or if you look on their website, they may also have a dealer form, right? So they might have a form that they want people to fill out to apply to become a dealer or like a reseller's form. The terminology can change a little bit. Often you'll find that in their website footer if you don't see it in the header. So always check the footer of a supplier website for that. And then record those details. So if they've got a phone number, put it in your spreadsheet. If they've got an email address, put it in your spreadsheet. Put their website in your spreadsheet. And then you're also going to take notes in that spreadsheet as you get in contact with the suppliers. So you can track who you have reached out to, who you haven't reached out to. What did they say? Do you need to follow up with them in a week's time because they said they wanted to think about it, and could you call them back? Did you try and call them but nobody answered? Did you send them an email? Like, you want to be able to track all of this to avoid going back to the same person twice and looking like an idiot, basically, and not knowing what you have or hadn't done. So you get all their contact details on there, and then quite simply, you pick up the phone. The next checkbox for you to check is, did you call every supplier you can find contact details for? You should be able to say yes to that. You need to call them first. Phone call, right? Now, yes, there's going to be some suppliers where it's hard to find a phone number for them. And if you absolutely can't find a phone number, then can you email them? Yes, you can email them. But your chances are always going to be lower with just email because, I mean, think about email yourself, right? At least 50% of emails generally go unopened. So you can't leave the success of your business and all of the things that you're aiming and hoping to achieve down to the chance of somebody opening your email or not, right? The stakes are too high here. You can't leave it just to that. Email absolutely does provide a role, and that's why the next step on our checklist is, did you follow up every call with an email? So even if you do speak to somebody, I would recommend still emailing them after the call, providing them your contact details, recapping the call a little bit. Hey man, it was great to talk to you about this. If they said yes, you can say, I'm glad we're going to be working together. Just to confirm, I need, product images, blah, 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 the things that you need to get from them. I would do that even if you speak to them. If you try calling them, the next step is and they're not answering, send them an email as well and just say, hey, just to get yourself on the record, try to call. I'll try calling back again. But in the meantime, love to have a chat about, becoming a reseller of your products, right?
I can hear the people listening to this, John. They're, what do I say? How could I possibly know what to say? We did 3-part episode on this. We went really, really deep with every single tip we could possibly come up with. It is very early on, but I created a pretty link for you. So dropshipbreakthru.com/suppliers goes to Spotify directly to part 1 of a 3-part series on everything you should say, all the possible things that are going to come at you that you're going to need to weave your way around. But make no doubt about it, get ready to fail. Someone's going to say no to you in this process. In fact, multiple people are going to say no to you, and that's fine. None of these are hard no's. Most of them are soft no's. Most of them just want you to go away and prove that you actually have some worth and call again and come back, and then they'll go, okay, sounds good. Let's get this started. So loads and loads of tips in there. 3 podcast episodes you do not want to miss. In fact, if I'm listening to this and you've never heard us before, go back and start at episode 1. The first 30 episodes is us laying out this entire process in much greater detail. Grab this checklist, listen to that, take action on all of this stuff. I think you'll find a lot of those episodes super valuable. Yep.
And then the next step in our checklist is email any suppliers you can't find the number for. I think I mentioned that, but you want to make sure that you do that at the very least. Once again, start at least putting your case forward in some way, even if you can't call them, or fill in those application forms on their websites. If they don't have a phone number, do that first. And then the final checklist to get through is, as you get approved with suppliers, make sure you're getting access to their product details. So by that I mean product images, pricing sheet, that tells you what your wholesale price is going to be, what their recommended retail or map pricing is at, any other product related, access to manuals, product descriptions, technical data, whatever is relevant to the particular products you're selling. Suppliers will provide that to you generally, or they'll at least point you to where you can get it or access it. Some of them will have an online portal where you can just log in and grab that sort of stuff. Others will physically send it to you in the email. Some might have it in a G drive. There can be a lot of different options about how that happens. But make sure you're requesting that and you're getting that for them, because that leads straight into kind of like the final stage, if you like, the big final, almost the final stage of our checklist here, which is getting ready to launch your business. Once you start getting approved with suppliers, you can now move into the getting ready to launch phase, which is kind of like, you're real close here. You don't need a lot of suppliers to do this either. All right, so a lot people will often ask, like, how many brands do I need on my website before I can go live, before I can start advertising, before I can make sales? The answer is very few, actually. You could do it with one. You could do it with one. Right? You could do 2, 3, 4, 5. These are all good numbers, and you can definitely start with that. The important thing is if you do have a smaller number, like let's say you've got 2 or 3 suppliers and there's like 20 in your niche, you can go live with 2 or 3, but you shouldn't stop trying to get more. Right? I think that's the important thing here. Don't like go 2 or 3 and then, I'm not going to call any more suppliers for the next 6 months. That's like a bad choice or a bad decision. You can go live while you continue to contact suppliers and try to get more and more online and upload their products. That's what you should do. But like I said, your goal in the beginning is to get to that first sale as quickly as you can. All right. And so once you've got some products to sell, customers aren't going to your site and going, let me count how many brands this person's selling, and they're only selling 3 brands. They're not selling 5 brands, so I'm not going to buy that product that I really want to buy from them that looks really good. That's not what customers think. No one cares, right? No one cares, except for you, about how many brands that you actually do have. And so don't get stuck on that. Once you've got the product details from suppliers, your next step is to upload products. So you've got to get those products onto your website. That may require you to reformat some images, depending on the state of the data and the things that you get from your suppliers will determine how much work you need to do with that. Some suppliers, will have very, very little in the way of descriptions for their products, and so you might need to write some product descriptions. It's probably a good practice. I know Ben would say it's probably a really good practice to at least rewrite part of your descriptions, the first paragraph or 2, if you are using supplier descriptions for your products. And yes, you can use AI to help you with that task for sure. You can give AI a bit of information from your supplier and say, give it a prompt around, can you take this information and rewrite it into a product description with a particular tone? It's for this customer, blah, blah, blah. And it'll spit you out a product description, which you can then tweak up yourself a little bit further pretty quickly. And so one of the nice things about today is that we have AI tools to help us with some of this stuff, which we used to do completely manually in the past. So it's a little less time consuming than it used to be. So you got to get those products on there. And then once you've started to get some products on there, your next checklist item is to rearrange your website to take into account the actual products that you're going to be selling. So when you set up your demo website, you probably said, well, here's just some product categories that I can put up there in the main menu. And then once you've called supplies, you might find that there's a product category or 2 that you didn't actually get any products for, or you're not going to have any products in before you go live. You want to remove those collections from your site, right? You want to remove them from your menu. You want to make sure they're not live collection pages if they're empty. This is one of the ways that you can get your Merchant Center account suspended, which we try to avoid while we're going through this getting ready to launch phase. So if there's any pages that are going to be empty on your site, take them off your site altogether. It can be tempting to say, well, I'll just leave that one there in the background until I get some products for it. Don't do that. Turn them to draft. If you think you want to keep them for the future, at least turn them to draft in your Shopify account and take that menu item out of your main menu so it's not there and it's not clickable, or just delete it altogether. Like I really don't care, but just make sure it can't actually be found by like a Google bot or something like that. So the next checklist item is to run through your website and make sure it's complete. Now, once again, I have this in here, one, because it's good for customers to not go to a website with things that don't work on it or things that aren't finished or like lorem ipsum kind of text or, placeholder images that don't make sense. That just looks less professional. But this is, once again, to make sure that in one of our upcoming steps, we get approved by Google to sell our products using Google Shopping, which is, it's not the be-all and end-all of marketing, but it certainly is good to be able to do it. And Microsoft to a certain extent as well, like Bing ads, Microsoft ads. You want to go through your website with a fine-tooth comb, like really look at everything and just make sure you don't have, and these are some of the reasons why accounts get suspended, like a placeholder image, which is like an empty image box with like a grayed out kind of placeholder on it. Once again, any text that is kind of like placeholder text, links. If you've got links on any of your pages, make sure they all work. Like, click them. Do they work? Are they dead? Do they go to a 404 error page? If you shouldn't have any links on your product pages that go to an external website. So sometimes when you cut and paste supplier descriptions, if they have a link in the description to somewhere else on their website, you accidentally cut and paste that in, you don't realize that link goes to the supplier website. Google doesn't like to see that at this point, right? There's nothing wrong with links that go to other websites, but that's not the time or the place for it. So you just want to go through your website. Are you using the same email address? Are you using the same phone number everywhere? Are you using is everything consistent? Do you have the same message on everything? Do you have your returns policy up there? Does it make sense? Is it correct? Do you have your shipping policy up there? Does it match what you're saying about shipping in other places on your website? So really just go through it and think about, is there anything missing here? Is there anything that's off? And it's really just a double checking process to make sure that you're not missing something, because it is easy as you've gone through the process of building your website just to miss some little things. And honestly, when it comes to Google suspensions, little things can result in a suspension because it's an AI bot that checks your website the first time round, right? And it doesn't look at it like a human. It just says, look, the AI bot goes, I've got my own checklist, and if any one of these things isn't ticked, it's just a suspension. Right? It doesn't matter how big or small it is, and it doesn't think about, like, why did this person do this or not do this? It doesn't say, oh, I can see what they were trying to do is this, blah, blah, blah. There's no, intuition in that bot. It's just like a yes, no. Like, did this person do this thing? If the answer is no, then you get suspended. Even if you didn't mean to, even if it was an accident, blah, 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 nobody cares, right? So you just have to check and make it a conscious task to check. And then once you've done that, you want to make sure your website password protection is off. So this is on the storefront of your website, which you can go to in online store and then preferences in your Shopify account. There's a storefront password. Make sure that's turned off, because if in one of our upcoming steps you apply for a Merchant Center account, they go and crawl your website and you've got a password on it, meaning they can't crawl it, you'll get suspended straight away, right? Then once you've done that, we want to make sure our checkout is active. So now you can go into settings in your Shopify account, go into the checkout area and connect your PayPal account and connect turn Shopify payments on, which is the main credit card processor that you're going to use, ideally on Shopify. Make sure that's all active so that customers can now, if they go to your checkout page, they can check out and purchase a product. Once that is live, you can actually accept payments. And once again, that's something that Google is going to check when you go and try and switch all their stuff on. So you want to have that live at this point, and that means technically as soon as you do that, you can get orders. So I do recommend, sometimes people can find your website when you least expect it and place an order. And so keep an eye on your orders. Make sure you've got the Shopify app on your phone at this point. You've got notifications turned on so that if you do get a random order, and we often have students who are like, holy shit, I got my first order and I haven't even turned my ads on yet. How did somebody find my business? It's weird. It happens, right? And so keep an eye on that as soon as you turn those checkouts on, because it can happen. Now, if you go out and you grab this checklist that we're talking about on this podcast episode from us, I'm also going to give you our Dropship Breakthru Merchant Center approval checklist. And I recommend you then run through that as well before you go and open any Google advertising accounts. Now, I will put the caveat on that going through it does not guarantee that you won't get suspended, right? No, nobody can guarantee that, because sometimes suspensions just happen, even when nothing's wrong. But it will give you a really great chance at that not happening, right? It'll give you the highest possible chance that you're going to avoid that. But once again, it's just another great double-checking process to make sure you're doing everything right at this point. So it's kind of like a sister checklist to this beginner's checklist we're going through here. You'll get that if you go and grab this one we're talking about here. So once you've gone through that and you've ticked all the boxes in that checklist, now we can go. Our next tasks on our checklist are to go and open all of our Google advertising accounts. So you're going to go and open a Google Ads account, ads.google.com. Make sure you check there about what deals they're running. They'll usually have if you spend this amount of money, we're going to give you this amount of money in free credit. Grab whichever deal's the best there. They're sometimes offering up to $3,000 lately. In some cases, $3,600, something like that. So you can get a good deal there.
It's going to make you set up an ad right out of the gates too. Set up the ad, just pause it when you're done. They're going to make you set up an ad, just work through the process. Pause the ad when you're done. Make sure that you got all of your information in there correctly about your business and move on to the next Google platform.
Yep, absolutely. The next one is to open a Google Merchant Center account. Once again, I'll reiterate again. As you go through opening both of those accounts, you're going to put in details about your business, aka payments. You're going to put a credit card or a debit card into Google Ads that your account will be paid with. It's going to have an address associated with it. When you set up that payments profile, make sure it's the same address that you put into Merchant Center when it asks you for your business info. So you're going to open a Google Merchant Center account, go through that Merchant Center account when you open it, and like go through the business info settings, go through the shipping settings, go through the tax settings, go through all the settings and make sure you fill them all in. Fill every box in that you can and make sure it's consistent with what's on your website and in your other Google accounts, right? So once again, you're going to put a phone number in there. What's your customer service phone number? It's got to be the same as what's on your website, as an example. So set everything up. Then you're going to open a Google Analytics account, analytics.google.com. Then you're going to open a Google Search Console account. And then you want to make sure that all of those accounts are linked together. So Google accounts can all be linked together. That helps them to share information and data between each account to help you understand your marketing better. In the case of Merchant Center and Google Ads, that allows you to put your products into your shopping campaigns. They need to be linked to do that. And so you want to make sure they're all linked together. They all have the option in the settings for each account to link to other accounts, so it's pretty easy to do that, but you just want to make sure that you have done that. And once you've checked that box, now you can make sure you've got tracking codes. So I mentioned it earlier, there's an area in the Shopify settings called Customer Events, where you can go and place things like your Google Ads tracking code, where you can place any sort of codes that you get from these. You can put in your Google Analytics account ID or I can't remember what it's called in the new GA4, but there's a GA4 tracking number. You put that in your Shopify account, and that enables these accounts to track user behavior on your website, and give you, once again, data about your marketing as you go and how it's performing on your website. So you want to make sure those are all enabled. Once you've done that, your next checklist item is to configure any Shopify account apps that you need. So you don't want to put all of your, on Shopify, we'll use an app, for example, your online chat functionality. So your customers come to your website, you'll be familiar with seeing a little chat bubble down the bottom where customers can engage your customer service in a chat. A review app, so customers can leave reviews on your website. But we don't put all of these in when you first launch your business, because a lot of apps that you pay for come with a free trial, right? And so let's just be real. We want to save a little bit of money here. Don't put them on your Shopify store until you actually need them. because then you can take best advantage of the free trial. Get a few weeks of free trial while your site goes live. So you want an online chat app, you want a review app, and we recommend rapid reviews at this point. You can go and grab that, dropshipbreakthru.com/rapid. We recommend an app called Rewind, which creates backups of your Shopify account, which means if anything ever happens to your product data, you accidentally delete things or something like that, you can go to a backup and just have it all reloaded for you. It's super cheap, and trust me, in the case where you accidentally delete a whole bunch of shit, which can happen, you're going to be real sad about that if it took you a lot of time to create that, because you will have to go back and recreate it from scratch if you don't have a backup. And so you kind of think of a backup as like hitting save, double save, right? We all know the importance of hitting save, on a computer. So that's what you want. Dropshipbreakthru.com/rewind to go and grab that one. You don't need a lot of apps. I mean, those are really the basic apps that you need. You need one more here, which is our next checklist task, which is you want to submit a product feed to Google Merchant Center. So a product feed is basically the bridge between your online store, which houses your product data, and putting ads onto Google. And so we need a connection between the back end of your Shopify account and Google Merchant Center to pass that information along. And so we use an app for that called Feeds for Google Shopping. It's by a company called Simprosys. Once again, you'll find the link to that in the checklist. So you want to install that app, and then you want to connect it to your Google Merchant Center account. That app will offer to set up a bunch of ads for you and stuff. Just ignore all of that. We're only really using it to connect product feeds to Google Merchant Center. Down the track, when you get to it, you can also use that app to connect your feed to Microsoft ads. If you want to run Microsoft shopping ads, you can also use it to connect your feed to Facebook. We do like product ads on Facebook for retargeting down the track a little bit. So that app will connect your products to all of the platforms you need to connect to. But in the first instance, we're just going for Google here. So we're going to connect our Google Merchant Center. And at that point, once you've got a feed into Google Merchant Center, your products are live in there. This takes a matter of hours. Usually it doesn't take a really long time. Maybe it'll take a day for products to get approved and that sort of thing. But once they are, you can now run shopping ads, right? And this is the first method that we use to quickly get targeted customers to our website. So for people to buy things and make our first sales. Google Shopping ads are a great marketing strategy for us. It's not the only marketing strategy for a high-ticket dropshipping business. I want to be really clear about that. A lot of people overemphasize its importance, but it's good. It works. It gets results quickly, so that you can tell what's working in your business. You can see what products people are actually interested in. You can start optimizing your product pages when you've got real traffic. And so this gives us a quick way to instantly turn on traffic to our website. And so at this point, your last, checklist item in the getting ready to launch phase is to set up your first Google Shopping ads. We have a method that we recommend for beginners, which we call the inverted funnel. You do not want to run Performance Max. You'll see a lot of people talking about Performance Max ads online for Google Shopping. That is a thing that works for some e-commerce businesses, primarily lower ticket e-commerce businesses. It does not work for high ticket products. There is no evidence at this point that is the case. Trust me, I've looked for it. I've looked for that evidence. I've tried them. I've also run them for other businesses for low ticket products and seen them work. But I have seen zero evidence that they can work yet for high ticket products. So don't do that. You will be disappointed. Set up the inverted funnel that we recommend. We've talked about it on this podcast before for sure. I've shown you it in Google Ads accounts on this podcast before. I've done account teardowns. And once again, if you want to see the over-the-shoulder setting it all up and getting all of this stuff right. It's in our course, Dropship Breakthru, dropshipbreakthru.com/call. If you're interested in joining that, to getting access to that. But set up your ads. You just need those ads. That's the first thing you need to do to make your first sale. You don't need lots of other fancy ads. You don't need retargeting ads yet. You don't have any traffic to retarget anyway. You don't need search text ads yet. You just need the shopping ads. You need to get them set up. And then at that point, you're ready to launch your business. It's time to hit the go button. And so, final couple of steps there. Make sure your customer...
Sorry, I dropped out, John. We just got a $14,000 sale. This is the beauty of high ticket dropshipping. This is why you're doing this checklist. Is we sold an item for $14,000. That's amazing.
That is amazing. I love it.
I got a little distracted. I'm back.
He's
but
back.
The only way we sold this product, nice little transition here, is we answered our fucking phone. And so make sure your customer service is active. The moment you launch, you better be ready to answer chats. And if your phone rings, you better answer that phone, or God willing, call them back as soon as you possibly can. Because when they reach out, that's someone who's very, very interested, right? So make sure your customer service is active, ready to go. You have made sure your contact page goes to your inbox. You're monitoring your inbox. You've got your notifications on. If you've got open phone connected to your phone or to your laptop, if that's where you're going to answer calls, you're ready to go, so that when someone calls and says, I want to buy that $14,000 product, you are ready to take their credit card information over the phone and process that order.
Yeah. And look, if you're somebody, I know the question that comes up for people immediately here is, but I work a full-time job. You know, I can't answer phone calls all the time. You know, I've got to work. I've got to do blah, blah. That's okay. Don't stress this. Make sure you've got a great a voicemail message set on your open phone account, so that when people do call, if you can't answer it, they're going to go to a voice message where they leave their information. They give you an idea about what they're interested in or what help they need, what their questions are, and you can call them back when you can, but have a plan for that. When can you call? When do you need to check your voicemail? When can you? Is it on your lunch break? Do you have like a morning tea or whatever, a morning break and then a lunch break and then another break, or is it after you finish work of a day? Right? You can call people at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. You can call people at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. You can call them at 6 o'clock. In fact, a lot of customers will be impressed if you call them out of hours. Like, not ridiculous out of hours, but like 6 or 7 o'clock at night. My first business, this is when I had to call a lot of customers back. And some customers would be like, oh, wow, you're really going above and beyond here, aren't you? You're still working? Like, it's impressive to some people that you're doing that, and makes it more likely that they will buy from you, even though you were a little bit late getting back to them. But in most cases with high-ticket products, people often don't need to finish the purchase right then and there. Right? They've been thinking about it for a little while already. They don't need the product tomorrow. They just want it, right, at some point. And so, you know, having a little bit of a delay with customer service, you might miss the odd order, yep, but there's always more orders. There's always more orders. There's always more customers. There's always more money, but you will get some of them, right? And that's all you need in the beginning. You just need some of them. So make sure your customer service is active, and you know what you have a plan for dealing with your customer service, whatever that plan is. Then turn on your Google shopping campaigns. You're going to have people, they will start running within hours of turning them on, if not an hour, even if not less. And at that point, you will have real live customers, potential customers coming to your website. So now you're officially live. You're off to the races. You've got your first business up and running, which is wildly exciting. You'll be very nervous as well. I don't know why. Like, you just get super nervous, even though you don't know the people that are going to be looking at your business. You turn on that. There's a lot of tension around turning those shopping campaigns on in a good way. And you're like, oh, what are people going to think? What are they going to do? Like, am I going to make any sales? Like, it's an exciting time. So take a second to sit in that and enjoy it, because getting to that point, you can see all the little tasks that you've done. Like, that's a lot, right? Like, that's more work than most people are going to do towards whatever their dreams are. And so even getting that far is a huge achievement. And from there, you know, there's a whole other checklist that would come after this, but, just roll and focus on serving customers. Like, as people call in, you know, do the best that you can for them. Go out of your way to answer their questions, you know, go the extra mile. And that's really, I think, What gets a lot of your first sales over the line?
I'll say one more thing. Turn the sound on in your phone. That cha-ching sound from the Shopify app, it's the greatest sound you will ever hear, especially in the beginning. You'll never forget that first sale. So if you set up your ads the right way, if you targeted brands and products that are actually getting searched, you're more likely than not going to get your first sale. And as John said, there's a lot of pieces of the puzzle after that on how you fulfill it and how you handle all that stuff. But celebrate that moment because it's probably going to come. If you did this entire checklist, it's more likely than not that you're probably going to get a sale, and enjoy that moment when it comes because it's something you'll never forget.
Yep, absolutely. And so, look, that was a whole bunch of stuff that we just went through. We went through the whole checklist, the beginner's checklist, the ultimate beginner's checklist for starting a high-ticket dropshipping business. It sounds like a lot. On average, people get through that in about 30 days. In about a month, even while working a full-time job, even if they've got kids, people still get through it in that amount of time. Consistency, an hour or two a day, most days of the week, you can get there. A month, 30 days. Some people take a little bit longer. I've actually seen people do it in less time. That's about what you can expect. So from here, you've got a pretty good idea of what you need to do, right? The task is just to go out and do it now. In 30 days, you can have your own business up and running. And like I said, if you would like to see all of the how-tos, all of the over-the-shoulder videos, all of the on the screen, the questions, the answers that come up, if you want to have access to all of that, and give yourself the highest chance of putting this checklist into action successfully, then you get that in our Dropship Breakthru program. We'll give you all the support you'll ever need to do it, and to find out where the right fit for you in Dropship Breakthru is. All you need to do is head to dropshipbreakthru.com/call. Book a call with our team. You'll actually talk to someone who has been a member of our program, runs their own high-ticket dropshipping business, a multiple seven-figure-a-year business, and you can not only ask any questions you have, you can ask them about their experience as well. In some cases, you might even speak to me or Ben, if you're lucky. And but whatever you do, if you're thinking about it, just have a go, have a crack, take some action. That's the biggest thing that you can do right now.
And if you want a copy of this checklist, dropshipbreakthru.com/checklist. I'm sure if you've been with us for these 2 hours, you've probably found the link. You've been to the link, but it's underneath here. If you're in YouTube, it is in the description. If you're on a podcast platform, dropshipbreakthru.com/checklist.